Hello and welcome to the Cinementalist podcast for cinementalist.com. My name's Andy. Sitting opposite me is Liam. Sitting next to me is Floki, who I've turned his lights off because he's been a pain in the ass.
Indeed.
Consistently since he's woken up. He has literally done nothing but bang against the window, torpedo himself into the window.
He's back to his old self.
Yeah, it's the joys of spring. He is looking for a mate and I do not have one.
Well, you can rely on him. Not in the best ways necessarily, but at least you can rely on him.
Yeah.
To be an absolute fucking nightmare.
There's something to be said for consistency.
Absolutely, yeah. No one said it was pleasurable. It just is.
Yes, as some of you probably know, we record on Thursdays, and today's Thursday the 24th, which has been a day.
It has been a day, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's been quite a vexing day, maybe a bit of a stressful day.
One of those sort of world history days where everything changes and you sit back and go, oh, is everything going to be okay? Probably not.
Just like sitting around doing an assortment of things today, attempting to chill out. And I was like, this is actually pretty frightening shit.
I've just been doom scrolling and had BBC News on in the background all day, which has been very informative. And I feel up to date on everything that's going on. And yeah, at the same time, there's a malaise and a depression sinking in the background. But yeah, we're not a political podcast.
No.
People watch films and TV and stuff for escapism. And people listen to
certain films.
Yeah, I suppose.
Certain films.
Some of them you just watch to feel shit, I suppose.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, what we do is recommend stuff that we think's good or we think's bad and try and provide an entertaining experience. And that's what we're going to do today.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So there you go. Right.
An acknowledgement achieved.
Yes. Everyone knows what we're talking about, yet somehow we've not referenced it. Yes. Let's kick off with some film news. First thing this week, James Mangold is to direct a Buster Keaton biopic.
Yeah, I saw this doing the rounds a couple of times on Twitter.
Yeah, this is from filmnews.co.uk. The 58-year-old filmmaker is developing a project about the life of the actor and comedian with 20th Century Studios. According to Deadline, James will direct and produce the movie, which is based on the book Buster Keaton Cut to the Chase by Marlon Mead. Keaton is an icon of American cinema and was a pioneer in the age of silent movies. He's still considered to be one of the great physical comedians in movie history and have famous roles in films such as Sherlock Jr. and The General. James's previous movie credits include Logan, Ford vs. Ferrari, and the Oscar-winning Johnny Cash biopic Walk the Line. So quite a, that's a hell of a portfolio.
We're talking about Mangold's back catalogue.
Yes, yeah.
No mention of Copland or
I don't know why the article called him James's. It's weird to use his first name.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What about fucking Copland?
Yeah, you really like Copland, didn't you?
I think it's the best film he's done.
Oh, he's got some real credits to his name.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Buster Keaton as well. That still cracks me up. Although I mean, the level of he was sort of the jackass of his day. You know what I mean? He's all these death-defying stunts kind of thing.
Do you prefer him to Chaplin?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Not that I dislike Chaplin in any way, but Buster Keaton.
No, not at all. It's just that people like to force a competition, don't they? And that's why I've always seen during the rounds. Like, who do you prefer out of Keaton and Chaplin?
Yeah. No, for me, it's I'm always a big admirer of that kind of vaudeville slapstick humor that done with intelligence.
Yeah,
it can so often be done badly, and he was just the master of physical comedy. And you can see Buster Keaton in just about every good slapstick performance ever since. You look at like John Cleese in Fawlty Towers or something like that. It's very Keaton-esque. He was a big influence, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting sounding stuff. Any word on casting?
Not yet, no. The filmmaker is also working on the upcoming Indiana Jones 5, which we're definitely less interested in, but we'll be reviewing, of course.
Any fridges around in that one? I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for those.
Oh, hang on. I'm just scrolling through here. No one's sure who's in the lead yet, but and actually thinking about it, he does look like him a bit. Mads Mikkelsen will star in the action-adventure film in an undisclosed... Oh, no, sorry, that's Indiana Jones. I was thinking for a minute, Mads Mikkelsen actually does look a bit like Buster Keaton. But I guess if you're doing a biopic, I think he's past it in terms of age, unless you're going to do late life Buster Keaton. I seem to remember reading that he got his slapstick comedy chops, as Keaton, obviously. When he was a kid, his brother used to throw him around on stage. And so he learned how to fall. And so he could literally be thrown into the audience or thrown on, down 3 flights of stairs or whatever. And he knew how to bounce and land and that kind of stuff. So you're really looking forward to that. I think that's got some legs.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah.
A second article this week, Fight Club author Chuck Palahniuk says China's censored ending is actually truer to his vision.
Which is weird because I heard him expressing some grievance about this.
Well, yeah, he seems to have sort of come around on this. Chuck Palahniuk, author of the original novel on which David Fincher's film Fight Club was based, responded Wednesday to news that China dramatically altered the ending of the movie to conform with local censorship rules. The original 1999 film, which starred Brad Pitt, Edward Norton, and Helena Bonham Carter, ends with the narrator, Norton, killing off his imaginary alter ego, Tyler Durden, Pitt, and then watching as buildings explode across the city's skyline, suggesting that his anarchist crusade to take down consumerist society had begun. A key tenet of China's film censorship system is that criminals must always be punished for their crimes on screen and societal harmony restored. So, before the 20th Century Fox film began airing on Chinese streamer Tencent Video, Fight Club's ending was altered. The climactic scene was excised and replaced with a blank screen showing the message, "The police rapidly figured out the whole plan and arrested all criminals, successfully preventing the bomb from exploding. After the trial, Tyler was sent to a lunatic asylum, receiving psychological treatment. He was discharged from the hospital in 2012. What a slap in the face that ending is.
Fucking hell.
News of the alterations sparked outcry on Chinese social media among local film fans who had seen pirate copies of the original cut, not to mention among moviegoers elsewhere in the world where Fight Club is a cult classic. Now Palahniuk, originator of the characters and story, has weighed in with his own response. The author tweeted a link to his Substack newsletter where he discusses the episode, writing, "Have you seen this shit? This is super wonderful. Everyone gets a happy ending in China." In his newsletter, Palahniuk wrote, "Tyler and the gang were all arrested. He was tried and sentenced to a mental asylum. How amazing. I'd no idea. Justice always wins. Nothing ever exploded. Fini." The author later gave an interview to TMZ in which he pointed out that the altered Chinese ending is actually somewhat closer to how his book concluded. In Palahniuk's novel, the narrator's scheme also fails, not because of the wisdom and competence of the authorities, but simply due to his bomb malfunctioning. The narrator then shoots himself in the head and wakes up in a mental hospital, thinking that he's made it to heaven. The irony is that the way the Chinese have changed it is that they've aligned the ending almost exactly with the ending of the book, as opposed to Fincher's ending, which was more spectacular visually. So in a way, the Chinese brought the movie back to the book a little bit. I mean, I don't really have anything to say about this other than it's really, really funny that somehow their censorship is sort of turning around and gone, actually, yeah, that's almost, you've almost got it.
Well, I was surprised that China still has some variation of what it used to be called the Hays Code.
Yeah.
It's like you can't show the law being defeated.
Yes, you have to show the authorities as being better, and everyone has
no Tommy guns, no cheeky flash of the thigh.
What was that terrifying term? Societal harmony. That's to show societal harmony. At the end, nothing changes.
What the fuck does that mean?
Everyone go back to your homes. But yeah, I don't really have anything to say about that other than that's very, very funny.
Good God.
Third article this week. This is from MovieWeb. The Meg 2, The Trench, officially starts filming. Cameras have started rolling on the Meg 2. Per Variety, the Killer Shark sequel is officially started shooting in the UK at Warner Brothers Leavesden Studios just outside of London. This follows a recent report that the anticipated sequel is about to get production underway. Jason Statham is expected to reprise his role as a US Navy diver Jonas, with Li Bingbing also expected to return as an oceanographer Su Yin. I'm very proud of myself for getting oceanographer right in one go. I fucked it up when I was rehearsing reading this article earlier. John Turteltaub isn't back in the director's chair for the sequel, dubbed The Meg 2 The Trench, as Ben Wheatley has taken the directing reins. Screenwriters, I'm just going to pause there actually for a minute. I mean, I think when this was in contention a couple of years ago, we did bring it up on the podcast, but I just want to point out once again, Ben Wheatley doing The Meg 2.
Yeah.
That's...
I mean, this is a guy who, I mean, I guess you could argue that the most accessible film, or maybe films that he's done so far, you got his adaptation of Rebecca, which was on Netflix, and also he did Free Fire, which is obviously a bit more comedic than a lot of his other stuff. But yeah, you look at the man's back catalogue, you've got stuff like Down Terrace, Kill List.
Yeah, Kill List is a real...
High Rise.
Yeah.
It's very, very strange that he's dipping his toes into these waters, but okay, let's see.
He gave an interesting quote, as per the article here. "A lot of it is about respecting the Meg and trying to make sure it's a great Meg film," Wheatley said of his approach to the sequel. "As you can see from the movies I've made, they're not necessarily, it's not When you go and do Doctor Who, I don't completely change it because I wanted to do it. I didn't want to necessarily make it something completely different that nobody recognized. So there's that element of back and forth, which is kind of interesting. So he's very aware that obviously he's aware that it doesn't fit the style of his other films, but it's going to be him doing an impression of a Meg film. I wonder if that'll work.
I mean, Ben Wheatley, you look at Down Terrace and Kill List, they've both got that docudrama style exchange going on between the characters, and they're all, very weird, sort of a dark comedy or very, very strange combinations of crime thriller and folk horror. And, then even something like Sightseers, which again taps into very, very dark comedy with a lot of similarities in terms of techniques, in terms of the way that it's shot. It's like someone telling me that the next Transformers film is going to be directed by, take your pick. The next Transformers film is going to be directed by fucking Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah. It's like some bizarre alternate reality. I mean, I quite like the idea of handing over big, schlocky action movie franchises over to directors that are known for more intimate, darker work. I think maybe we should do that with every blockbuster film that was... I'm not saying The Meg was a turkey, actually, because I was about to say every blockbuster film that's a turkey. I actually quite liked The Meg. I thought it was silly fun, and that's what it was supposed to be, and that's what came across. But I like the idea of, as you said, handing Fast and the Furious over to whoever, Paul Thomas Anderson, or I quite like it. It's sort of like everyone wears different hats day. Quentin Tarantino should have been given Star Trek, as far as I'm concerned, just because I think that's so mad. I really want to see what he'd do with it.
The Transporter 7, directed by Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
I mean, yeah, you would. I mean, everyone would flock to the screens, absolutely. But all the way there, as I will with this, I'm just going, I just have no fucking idea what to prepare myself for. Because it's Ben Wheatley's already something of an auteur because of how singular his filmmaking is. Most of the films he's made are readily identifiable and comparable to one another. So yeah, I'm just I'm bewildered, but also very curious.
That's going to be great. I'm going to go to the cinema to see it just because it's a spectacle movie.
Yeah.
And I really want to see what he does with it. He's a very, very accomplished and talented director. And he's going to be doing an impression of another filmmaker's work by the seams of what he was saying. But that's all that creative back and forth, and it needs to look like a Meg film. So it's going to be really
the first Meg film is just the textbook definition of cookie cutter enjoyable fluff.
Yeah.
There's not the Meg isn't really a film that warrants discussion but it is fun. It's a lot of fun.
The only interesting thing I really had to say about it, and I'm doubting myself on its interestingness at this point, but we both agreed on this actually, is that it actually wastes its reveal shot. There's that early sequence where they go down into I believe it's the Mariana Trench, which I always want to call the Marinara Trench, like the sauce. And they go beneath the sort of fog layer thing where the Meg lives, and the submarine gets beaten up and all that kind of stuff. But they actually show the scale of the shark. And then about 15 minutes later, you get the actual shark reveal where it's the little girl in the tunnel with chasing her robot toy. And it appears behind her and you see the full scale of it. And I loved that shot. I thought that shot would be so much better if that was the first time you saw the shark.
Yeah, it would have been. I mean, because when that scene where it reveals its face as the little girl's running after her toy, it's actually quite a good it's a good jump scare.
Yeah, it's a chilling moment, isn't it?
And it is very, very, it is scary.
When you got a shot that good, it's just one of those things, like if I was there, I would have made it better. But when you got a shot that good, surely in the editor's room, you go, wow, that's so awesome. We don't want anything to come before it. It's, Spielberg's classic thing with Jaws is because of the animatronic being rubbish, he was forced not to show the shark very much. So when it does appear, it's way more terrifying. Yeah, it's the classic monster movie trope, isn't it? Alien does it. Like you can name a million of them. I thought the Meg just slightly missed a trick there. Rainn Wilson was very good in it as well. I really like Rainn Wilson.
Yeah, I always thought Rainn Wilson was the antagonist, wasn't he?
He was,
yeah, I thought so, yeah.
And he's got the ability to play comedy and villainous at the same time with an effect in both. Yeah, he's very, very good.
I always enjoyed was it Super?
Yeah.
Did you see Super? Yeah, that's such good fun.
But yeah, really, really looking forward to the Meg 2. We'll see what he does with it. And my last article this week, this is a bit of TV news. Obi-Wan Kenobi's series lands in May. Hello there. It's surely the only response to news that we will finally actually be able to start watching Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney Plus in May, according to news from the Mouse House and the first official poster for the series. When in May, you might be asking? Despite May the 4th being right there, Lucasfilm and Disney have decided that 25th of May is the ideal date. We can sort of understand the logic, since that was the day the original Star Wars first blew audiences' minds when it arrived in American cinemas. So all we've got so far for this is that Ewan McGregor is in the role, obviously, and a poster of Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi in a desert. And I'm really looking forward to this because I thought pretty much the only thing that worked about the Star Wars prequels was Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, he actually really nailed that performance. And every time he was on screen, it sort of brought you back into it going, at least he's got it. You know what I mean? There was a bit of class in there. My concern about it is that as far as I know, when it comes to Star Wars canon, after Revenge of the Sith, the last prequel, I think it's Revenge of the Sith, isn't it? He essentially disappears into hiding, hides so well that nobody can find him and everyone assumes he's dead. And then at the start of A New Hope, he finds the New Hope, the guy who's supposed to bring balance to the Force, trains him and takes him off-world again. So as far as the canon is concerned, Obi-Wan Kenobi was on Tatooine hiding in a cave for all that time. So presumably what this show is going to do is that actually he wasn't just hiding in the cave. All this stuff happened to him in the meantime. It's all going to be on Tatooine, isn't it? And I'm kind of bored with Tatooine. Do you know what I mean? Like, Tatooine in A New Hope was the jumping off point for the story. It was a planet so shit that Luke Skywalker wanted to get away from it. And then The Mandalorian, quite a bit of it's on Tatooine, but I like The Mandalorian, fine. And the Book of Boba Fett, most of that's on Tatooine as well. And I'm like, this is going to be all on Tatooine. I'm kind of sick of the desert world that nobody likes with a bunch of criminals on it. When you've got that whole universe to explore, do you know what I mean? For me, sci-fi is about the imagination. It was great in The Mandalorian when he started traveling from planet to planet. And you got then like a jungle world, and you got like a world that was like rainy industrial docks, and another one that's a bit cyberpunk and all that kind of stuff. And that was one of the great things. You were looking at it going, this is filling in all those sort of gaps that you filled in your head. And it was all wonderfully designed and visually creative and everything. I'm not sure I want to watch, I really want an Obi-Wan Kenobi series, but if it's all based on Tatooine, I'm just bored of the scenery. Is that just me?
I mean, I don't know, mate, because I haven't watched any of Boba Fett, and I've only watched a little bit of Mandalorian.
Didn't you watch season 1 of Mandalorian?
Yeah, only that one, though.
Yeah, because most of that's on Tatooine as well. They just keep getting
So I mean, like, yeah, but I'm not quite as bored of it as it sounds that you are, though. So I still have to conclude it.
I just like a bit of creativity in my sci-fi, and I'm really looking forward to this series. I think it's great that Ewan McGregor's back in the role, and I think it's a good idea, but I wonder how they're going to fill in the fact that essentially, canonically, Obi-Wan Kenobi sat on his ass for a couple of decades with something interesting, compelling, and action, adventure, fun. But we will see anyway.
Well, as long as they aren't hacks, maybe they can expand that a little bit more, because I don't think there's anything that sort of compels them to restrict it all to Tatooine. Maybe they can
hopefully not.
They can write, they can write in a wider scope in terms of backstory for Obi-Wan. And sort of, just give
Obi-Wan,
whatever the cunt's name is, just give it a bit more variation.
Yeah, I hope so too. But The Mandalorian was so well done. I have high hopes for Star Wars TV. I think Star Wars, it seems to fit better on TV now than it does on films, which is kind of cool. But there you go. Anyways, that's the end of our news this week. Liam, as usual, has a couple of film reviews. Where are we going?
Okay, well, first up, this is a movie that I've been waiting to see for a considerable while, and I only just got the opportunity to do so very recently. But this is the latest film from one of my favourite filmmakers, Paul Thomas Anderson. This is Licorice Pizza. Now, this came out in the UK, I believe, in December. And, I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson, he's done Hard Eight, which I absolutely love. Boogie Nights, which I absolutely love. Magnolia, There Will Be Blood, Inherent Vice, Phantom Thread. I love the guy's stuff. I think he's absolutely superb. And when I found out this movie, which was originally titled Soggy Bottom.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was originally titled Soggy Bottom for reasons that were elucidated in the film, but then it just went with a far more conventional title, Licorice Pizza.
Still quite evocative, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Licorice Pizza, interestingly, I found out that it's actually a slang term for a vinyl record. And it was actually the name of a chain of record shops in California in the 1970s. So yeah, Licorice Pizza, I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
And it's very appropriate because this, Licorice Pizza, this is set in the San Fernando Valley in 1973. And we open up on a high school. and the students are all getting ready to have their annual yearbook photo taken. And one of them is a young man named Gary Valentine. Now, Gary Valentine is he attends school as well as being a budding child actor. He's been in a few commercials and he travels across country to do some theatre work and stuff. And his parents seem to be mysteriously absent. He seems to just live with his younger brother and appears to be his younger brother's custodian. I think his brother's about 7 or 8 years old. And Gary's lining up with everyone else to have his photo taken. He is played, by the way, by Cooper Hoffman, the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman, who was a collaborator with Paul Thomas Anderson quite often. And this is Cooper's debut role. He's about 18, I believe. And as Gary is lining up to have his photo taken, he notices a young lady walking past the queue of people, offering a mirror for anyone who wants to check themselves out, adjust their hair, etc. And this young lady is a woman by the name of Alana Kane, who is played by Alana Haim, as in Haim the band.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Which one is she?
She's the middle sister.
Okay.
She's not the lead singer, because that's Danielle.
I believe it's the lead singer / guitarist, bassist, and drummer, I think.
Yeah, well,
from memory.
I think Esther is the tallest one and the drummer.
Okay.
So it's not her and it's not the lead singer, it's the other one.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I'm just trying to reach for best ways to differentiate her.
No, the other one in Haim.
Yes, the other one. Yeah. But yeah, so Alana Kane, played by Alana Haim, is walking along, offering a mirror to anyone who might want to use it. And Gary puts his hand up and says, yeah, I'll just take a look at myself. And he immediately begins sort of chatting her up, saying whereabouts are you from? How old are you? My name's Gary, blah, 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 blah. I go here every night or every other night to go for dinner. Would you like to come along and say hello? Just immediately launches into a very confident sort of, I'd say pickup, but it's almost more of a diatribe, just trying to convince this girl to go on a date with him. And she does display some reluctance. Firstly, because this lad is 15 years old and she's 25. So initially, right out of the gate, she's a bit like, no, I don't really think so. But he just won't stop with his spiel. And, she's thinking to herself, okay, he's 15 years old, but he's got a lot of gusto in him. He is, a gassed up child actor, as a mutual friend of ours said when I was discussing this film with him. And I thought that was quite a good description. He's a youngster. He's full of beans. I think he might think a little bit highly of himself because he's a budding actor and he's got all of these fanciful teen ideas rolling around in his head. But she sees the twinkle in his eye and thinks that maybe he'll be fun to spend an evening with, even if it's in a bit of a condescending fashion on her part. She just hasn't really got anything else to do because Alana, this photographer's assistant gig is just one of many jobbing, hand to mouth. 1 minute she has this job and then the next minute she has that job. She's 25. She's living at home with her 2 sisters, played by her real-life sisters.
It's getting weirder and weirder.
And Esther.
Okay.
And their parents are played by their real-life parents as well. So, so she is living in a rather strict and traditional Jewish family in San Fernando Valley in the 70s. Her and her sisters, they don't really have an acrimonious relationship, but they don't really say much to each other. Their dad is very strict. Their mum doesn't really have much to say, but she's 25, lives in that environment. She wants to sort her life out. But Gary is just yet another thing that's come along that she just seems to have fleeting interest because she hasn't really solidified her identity yet. So she goes and sees Gary for dinner. And then it begins this sort of whirlwind, I would say like sort of whirlwind romance, but for the most part, Gary is rather obsessed with Alana, and Alana at least never explicitly reciprocates his affection. And but it's their sort of burgeoning friendship and just the way that it plays against the backdrop of this era of California in the 1970s. Gary trying out all of these different business ventures because he does, as I say, he does the little bits of acting here and there, but also he dips his toes in the water of being a waterbed salesman. And then along the way, he wants to like open up an arcade room and stuff. And they get into all these sort of crazy, almost vignette type like adventures. But Gary is constantly pining for her, and he has that very typical teen obsessive infatuation. Whereas with Alana, it's left for the most part ambiguous. You're not sure if she develops romantic feelings for him, or if she comes to feel quite protective of him over the course of the film. But you see Alana dallying with some other folk as well, some other men, some a little bit more approximate to her age, some significantly older. But yeah, it's sort of largely a friendship story combined with a mostly unrequited love story, so as not to spoil it. And it's what you might describe as a hangout movie. It's one where you sort of spend intimate time with the characters, and it's very much driven by their inner lives. Then a very meticulously structured plot. I loved this movie. Honestly, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I really do. PTA, all of the great hallmarks are there. The cinematography is absolutely sublime. Excellent use of soundtrack. You've got loads and loads of great tunes in there. Some that are contemporaneous, others that are a bit anachronistic. But you've got the Doors in there, Blood, Sweat and Tears. Chuck Berry crops up in Bing Crosby, which, as I say, are not very hip for the era. But in a way that's similar to Scorsese, Paul Thomas Anderson, I think, has always had very, very good knack for musical placement. And there's also brilliant use of stuff like Let Me Roll It by Paul McCartney and Wings. It's just got a really, really fabulous soundtrack. I love the performances of Cooper Hoffman and Alana Haim. This is the first gig for both of them, and I think they absolutely smash it. There's really, really nice chemistry between them. There's so many scenes where, Cooper doesn't really look tremendously like his dad, but there are a few lines in there where, with the delivery and just the certain expression on his face where the mannerisms come through, and there's something sort of quite, poignant about that. If you sort of a fan or a follower of his dad. I was really impressed by the fact that both Cooper and Alana had never had any acting experience before, but I thought they were both great. I love the placement of her family on the screen. It's just a touch that really, really works. And as I say, the narrative does have a loose structure to it, but at the core is that running connection between the two. Because Gary very much loves Alana, or he at least professes to love Alana, because he's only really 15 years old. So he's not really at the age where he or we actually know if he is as serious, lifelong serious about it as he professes to be, or as his behavior suggests. But I think it's really, really great. This ambiguous connection. Yeah, it's this ambiguous yet very deep friendship and possibly something else between these two. There has been some controversy surrounding the film, like, the kid's only 15 years old and like he's hanging around with, what is this 25-year-old woman doing hanging around a 15-year-old kid and his friends? Like, well, number one, the film visually doesn't go down any inappropriate roads. And number two, this is a film, and I think this is another thing that Anderson has done very meticulously. I think this is a film that made me and many others nostalgic for many elements of our own youth. It it has the zeitgeist flavor of 70s California, but what it was like to be that age, a 14, 15-year-old, how you felt about yourself, how you felt about the world, the dumb shit and some of the exciting shit that you got yourself brought up in. It really does. It manages to whip up that sensation incredibly well. And you've got fabulous cameos in there. You've got Bradley Cooper as John Peters, who was this like madcap, macho Hollywood big shot who was dating Barbara Streisand for a while. You've got Sean Penn as Jack Holden, who is he's an actor based on William Holden. Tom Waite shows up.
I haven't seen Sean Penn in anything in ages.
Yeah, he shows up in this. He's not in it for very long, but he has like quite a memorable moment in it, and it's mostly him bantering with Tom Waits and then partaking in quite a mad stunt. Benny Safdie, one half of the Safdie brothers, are one of my favourite filmmaking teams. He shows up in it as a Joel Wax, who's a real-life LA politician. This is just, honestly, this is a wonderful film. I could not stop thinking about Licorice Pizza for 4 or 5 days after it. The soundtrack is great. The acting is great. I love the freewheeling narrative. I love the offbeat energy of it. It really has that new Hollywood, quirky 70s lost classic energy. I think it's a really great film. And yeah, even though I do love I love Phantom Thread, but I think this is probably Paul Thomas Anderson's best film since, well, I mean, God. I mean, I would personally put it above the likes of Phantom Thread and Inherent Vice.
Wow.
I really would. And I like those films. I like those films a lot. I think they're great. But yeah, Licorice Pizza, absolutely 10 out of 10. Fucking loved it. And out of all the movies that have been nominated for next month's awards, I hope this one wins. I really do.
High praise indeed.
Absolutely high praise, yeah. And then next up, I decided to tuck into one of the latest big Netflix offerings, and that is the latest Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, I looked it up a day or two ago how many of these films there have been, but I've forgotten. But there's been a few.
Quite a few, yeah.
Yes, but this one, it's set contemporaneously. It's set in 2022, and it is a direct sequel to the very first Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So the one that the one that was released in 1974, and the events of which occurred in August of the year previously. So the events of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre took place in 1973, according to the film lore. And this movie is, it's a direct sequel to that. So they've sort of gone down the Halloween route. You know how the 2018 Halloween was a direct sequel to Carpenter's 1978 original.
It seems to be very much in fashion.
It is, yeah. What is the term? Is it a requel or whatever the fuck? I mean, I think I mentioned several like neologisms when talking about the fifth Scream the other week, but still not entirely sure what a lot of them mean. Probably because they're a load of shit.
Because they mean nothing. Yeah,
yeah, because they're just crap. But I mean, so Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So this was actually written by Fede Alvarez and Rodo Sayigues. And Fede Alvarez directed the 2013 reboot of The Evil Dead. And he also directed Don't Breathe, which I loved. And then Rodo Sayigues, he directed Don't Breathe 2, which I didn't really love. But so
I seem to remember you hated the remake of The Evil Dead as well.
Yeah, I didn't like that at all.
So we're real up and down territory.
It was toilet. It was complete and utter toilet. But yeah, so you have these two. And we open with you have a car full of youngsters. You have Dante played by Jacob Lattimore, and he is this guy. He's quite well known across social media. He is an aspiring young chef, and I think he's from Austin, but he and his little entourage are driving out to this desolate place in Texas named Harlow because it's a ghost town, and he wants to renovate a building or two so he can open up a restaurant there. And they've got a bus full of investors coming to Harlow. So this is an exciting new business venture for him. And you've also got other sort of money makers / influencers. You've got Melody, played by Sarah Yarkin. You've got Melody's younger sister, Lila, played by Elsie Fisher, who is sort of, she's I think the baby of the group, and she doesn't really seem to have any money generating means around her. She seems to tag along with her older sister, Melanie. And we also learn that she's the survivor of a school shooting. Was it, like a very Columbine style high school shooting. So she's a bit of a wounded dove, and she just spends a lot of her time with her headphones in her ear with her older sister hectoring her and trying to do everything for her in her life. So you've got those two, and Dante's girlfriend Ruth, played by Nell Hudson. So this quartet are venturing from Austin to Harlow with the means of scouting out the dilapidated buildings in this ghost town and turning it into a great big gentrified money pot. And several of the locals that they encounter on the way, including the chief of police, they don't make it explicitly apparent, but they're not especially pleased to see Dante and co. because they're Texans and they like Texas the way it is. And they don't want some, what they refer to as gentrifuckers. These millennial twits with lots of money made from internet careers as opposed to any proper hard graft coming in.
Goddamn vegans, I bet.
Coming in to their bloody town where they work hard being mechanics and cops and pumping gas and doing field work and being like, I'm going to open a restaurant and do all this. They don't really want that. But they don't explicitly say that. They kind of give, I suppose you could call it, passive-aggressive welcoming. You know, so that like, welcome to Harlow. And it's like, yeah, we heard all about you. We know about you. You're the cook, right? And he's like, well, no, actually, I'm a chef. You know, so
small plates of artisanal tofu.
Yes, already we're off to rather prickly starts. But they arrive in Harlow and there's some intergroup bickering a little bit because, you know, Dante is very, very excited about his venture and he wants to do anything he can to get it off the ground. But we learn bits about Dante. He seems like quite a self-involved and a little bit of a selfish individual. His girlfriend Ruth just kind of stands around trying to encourage him. And then we have the sisters Melody and Lila just bickering lots. Because as I say, you know, some layer of sibling dysfunction and Lila's scarred by her school shooting experience. You know, Melody just wants to make a fresh start of it, etc., etc., etc. And the building that they're leasing, they find out that it belongs to one Richter. It's a strange name for Richter, I think of Michael Ironside in Total Recall. I don't think of a sort of tobacco spitting, gun toting Texas mechanic and firearms fanatic played by Mo Dumford, but there we go. And we first see Richter when the group stop at a gas station, and as he's filling up his gas, we see his concealed carry on his belt. And Melody goes like, how much of a small dick do you have to wave a gun around in public? And then Richter comes over and he's like, man, we got a lot of feral hogs around here and we need to shoot invasive species on sight. You understand? You know, like that's not how Texas sound, but you know.
It's a British impression.
Yeah.
That's the best we can do.
That's what it is. He's like, big gun intimidates you, huh? And she's like, I've seen bigger and all this sort of thing. So, you know where we are, as the saying goes. Dante, they go into this decrepit old orphanage, this abandoned orphanage that they are very dismayed to see has a ragged Confederate flag hanging on the side of it. So they want to tear that down immediately. But when they enter the building, they see that there's still somebody in there. Ginny McCumber, played by Alice Krieg, good old Alice Krieg, the Boar Queen, among other things. And she's lived there. She lived in this building for a number of years, and it seems that her mental and physical faculties are failing. She's quite wizened. She needs a walking frame. She's very ill and disoriented. And she insists that despite Dante's protestations that he now has the deed to this building, and she is supposed to have moved out. She's like, no. I got the deeds to this house upstairs. This is my house. All the stuff with the bank and everything was sorted out. I don't need to move out. But Dante's like, no, you do. And the police get involved. And Ginny has, cardiac arrest right on the spot. And as paramedics come through, we see a great big lumbering figure, her son, come down the stairs, scoop her up, and carry her out into the ambulance. Now, we don't see the figure's face, but he is probably a good 6'5". He's a brick shithouse. He's got kind of long, unkempt hair. People are like, okay, who the fuck is this guy? Dante's girlfriend decides to ride in the ambulance with the paramedics and the cops en route to the hospital, while Dante and the others greet the bus full of investors and trying to keep the day running as smoothly as possible. But unfortunately, the lady, Ginny, from the building, she passes away in the ambulance. At which point, her son proceeds to kill everyone on board the ambulance. Viciously.
Aha. With a chainsaw?
No. I won't specifically spoil it in case you want to watch it. But the kills throughout this are relatively inventive. And then he proceeds to skin his mother's face and wear it. Yes, Jenny's son is Leatherface, who curiously would be, if we're talking about chronology here, would be about 70 years old now. And yeah, he seems to have a lot more agility, even if he is a great big lumbering hump indeed. So Leatherface mullers the people on the way to the hospital, and then, wears his mother's face, goes back into town, and goes up to his room and caves in his bedroom wall with a great big hammer. And you know what's hiding behind that wall?
Go on, tell me.
It's a chainsaw. It's a rusty old chainsaw.
And hence the Texas Chainsaw
And hence
Massacre.
the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Well, so far we've had it's in Texas. There's a chainsaw and there's been a lot of massacres. So it's fulfilling the brief, isn't it?
Yes. So absolutely. So that is all correct. You have those three factors there. We have the return of Sally Hardesty, who is the final girl of the original 1974 Texas one. Unfortunately, she's not played by Marilyn Burns this time around because she sadly passed away in about 2014. But she is played by Owen Fiore, who is an Irish actress that I have always really liked quite a lot. And so, you have all this, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but updated for the Zoomer generation. Return of Sally Hardesty, Leatherface is back, everything. You got all of these these cool sort of ingredients going on, and frankly, it's a bloody disgrace. It's a bloody disgrace. Honestly, this film, I hated it. It's an hour. It's 81 minutes long. It's 1 hour and 21 minutes. This is the biggest pile of shit that I have watched in a very long time. Honestly, number one, Leatherface didn't necessarily have to resemble his 1974 incarnation, to the letter, but, bit for bit. But the way that they have rendered him in this one, I saw a comparison the other day. He looks like the Scarecrow from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. He's this fat lumbering thing with a really goofy looking mask. He kind of looks like a cross between that and a cross between Piggy from the game Manhunt. And it doesn't look scary. It looks like, without the chainsaw, you think, who is this stupid fat fuck with a weird melty face? He just looks like an absolute bellend. And all of the main characters, I didn't give a shit about any of the main characters. I found them all really, really detestable. I couldn't stand them. They were vapid. They were narcissistic. The cast of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, no one ever said their acting was going to ever get any Academy Awards, but for the grindhouse movie that it is, the chemistry that they have in there, it suits the material. It's good for the material. I like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's a classic.
74. I really like it. And even though this is a direct sequel that excises all of the movies that occurred in between, I like the 74 inaugural film and the 1986, the second movie, which takes sort of a more parody approach to the horror genre and to its predecessor. I think that's a lot of fun. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre films, they are very enjoyable. A few of them at least, but this is absolutely diabolical. I'm not going to. I won't. I gave out a little bit of spoiler in terms of Leatherface jumping into action. I'm not going to spoil any specific events beyond that, just in case anyone wants to watch it. But for example, there is a moment in this film where a character, won't say anything about the context, a character says to Leatherface, these are his words verbatim, "Try anything and you're cancelled, bro."
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
It is.
That's lame.
That's really lame. That is lame, and that fucking lameness, that is consistently held throughout the film. The characters suck. Leatherface sucks. Everything was rote. Everything was predictable. The only thing that I will say about this film is that the final shot, there's a post-credit shot, but the final shot of the actual film, pre-credits, it made me laugh my arse off. It's supposed to be disturbing and horrific and shocking and sad. I just found it utterly hilarious. And that is a testament to what this film is. It is absolute rubbish. It is rubbish, nonsense, bollocks, shit. Please save yourself some time, but, otherwise don't say I didn't warn you.
Okay. Well, I really got you going, that one, huh?
Yeah.
That bad.
Oh, God, yes. Appalling.
Okay, then. Well, TV of the week. And this week, I'm going back in time a little bit because this first came out in October 2016.
Okay.
There are 3 seasons of it, and the last one ended in 2020, that infamous year, right before everything went horribly wrong, actually. So it's got quite good timing in that regard. I have no idea if a fourth season was planned, but there was also a feature movie released of it afterwards.
Oh, okay.
And this is a Finnish production, and it's called Bordertown.
Bordertown.
And you've probably seen it at some point come up in your Netflix feed because it's something Netflix has pushed quite heavily.
Mm.
And it's one of those things that I just simply didn't have time to get around to. And recently I've broken that streak. And one of the reasons for that is because it's of a genre that I review quite a lot because I watch a lot of them. And so I'm sort of wary of doing too many of them over and over again. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to give you a setup. And I can absolutely see the audience sort of rolling their eyes as I do it. But stick with me because I'm getting to a point. Okay. So, set up on this called Bordertown. It's based in Finland. And the Finnish title is Sorjonen. And it follows the exploits of Detective Inspector Kari Sorjonen. And we first find him in episode 1, season 1, as one of the most respected detectives in Helsinki in Finland, obviously. And he is basically called in to solve the cases that no one else can solve because he is essentially a savant. He has an incredible memory. He has an incredible eye for details. He can see connections that nobody else can see. But we learn that his wife has recently recovered from a brain tumor. And so he decides to pack up his family and take them to the small town of Lappeenranta in Finland, which is indeed a border town. It's a small industrial town and it borders with Russia. And he thinks that by going to Lappeenranta, that he will essentially be able to spend more time with his family. His work is so all-encompassing where he is currently. He always takes his work home with him. He felt bad about not being able to be there enough for his wife. Now she's in her recovery phase. He wants to spend more time with her. His teenage daughter, he's a bit worried about her and where she might be heading. He just wants to get away from it all and move to this small town to start a new life, especially because this town is currently creating its first serious crime unit, or SECRI for their abbreviation, SECRI. And they've decided that because crime is on the rise there and because the crime is becoming more serious due to the proximity with Russia, they need this specialist unit to investigate cases no one else can solve. And Carrie thinks that this might be a chance to take things a bit easier cases, and have a better life. Of course, we all know that this is going to go horribly wrong.
Indeed.
That Carrie, in some way, through his sheer presence, has seemed to have created more crime in this small town. And as a result, every week you get the Nordic noir police procedural, blah, 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 blah. I've reviewed a million of these. So I know what you're thinking. You're sitting there going, okay, so it's another one of these, Andy. When are you going to get to the trivia? Stop for a minute. You need to see this performance. You absolutely need to see this performance. Carrie is played by Ville Virtanen, who is a Finnish actor that I was previously unaware of. And he's sort of this guy in his 50s, close cropped haircut. He's got a bit of a paunch. He's quite gangly and leggy. And he's essentially plays it in that way you would expect, the sort of eccentric savant detective trope. It's just one of those things that's been done to death, and we've seen it in a million different pieces of media.
Yeah.
It's so overblown at this point. And in a lot of ways, Kari Sorjonen is similar to that trope. It fits the brief entirely and the whole murder of the week setup. His performance is what I would describe, and it's not a word I use very often, is singular. Absolutely singular. It's Shakespearean, it's theatre-based, it's old school Thesp stuff. The level of characterization, the level of performance that he's brought to this role makes him mesmerizing to watch. Carrie, as this eccentric detective extraordinaire, has got ways of, because he's so good at anticipating people's reactions and the way they're thinking and whether they're lying or not. He's got this methodology where he draws lines on boards and lines on the floor and sort of steps around. He paces everything out and has his own method of remembering things and putting things in order. He's got a way of tapping his head, and you can just see him in every single shot thinking as the character. You know how we always bang on about that, where you can tell an actor's really in character, when you can see them thinking the way the character thinks. He does it with a level of exactitude, with a level of compulsion that just makes him unstoppable to watch. It is a show based entirely around this performance, and it's absolutely stunning. It's one of those moments where, when you see a performance, it kind of gives you shivers
Yeah.
because you're completely transported by this character. In a lot of ways, this is quite a conventional Nordic noir detective show. And it does do that thing that Columbo used to do, where actually you don't necessarily, Columbo used to have that sequence at the start where you saw what happened. And then the rest of the episode was watching Columbo catch up to the plot, essentially. It doesn't quite do that, but it often does you're seeing the criminal that he's chasing interspersed in with Carrie chasing him down, which is not something I'm usually a fan of when it comes to this kind of thing. I prefer to chase the mystery down along with the detective, but it still absolutely works for this show. The ensemble cast around him as well is very, very good indeed. And I have to give full credit to just about everything in regards to the production, the filmmaking. But it's just one of those performances that's blown my mind. It's absolutely staggering. It's very, very hard to explain, actually. I've been going through doing this review over and over in my head. And every time I listen to myself do it, I think, yeah, but you're not really capturing why it's good. It's one of those things, it's such a good performance, you have to see it for yourself. And I know that's a very frustrating thing to say on an audio-based medium. I'll just go and watch it, you'll see what I mean. But it's that good that I'm left with that as my only possibility. It is a flawless performance. He's got a way of this. He's got this sort of hangdog expression. You know how Bergman used to do close-ups of people's faces, and it was sort of the crags in their face and the expression on their face.
Yeah,
that was literally expressionism. That way, all the like German tradition of it's those tiny little ticks and movements and things like that. This show really relies on Ville to be able to do that consistently. And you can just tell everything that's going through his mind just by the way he looks at somebody. You can see him looking straight through people. But there's more to the character than that as well. It's very, very well written. He's actually, normally when you have these sort of, he's actually points labeled a high-functioning autist. So I don't feel uncomfortable about saying that's literally a character facet of the guy. When you often see these sort of portrayals, they play on the fact that, with that comes misanthropy. With that comes a coldness. With that becomes an inability to connect with the people around you. Actually, this character is at points really warm. He likes to give hugs, and he loves his daughter, and he's emotionally overwhelmed by what's happening to his wife. But he's still got that obsessive thing with his work, and I found that so refreshing as well to see one of these characters not be what is essentially a complete bastard, but everyone puts up with him. Everyone puts up with Carrie because he's got this weird methodology, but they gradually learn to trust in it. That no matter what weird shit he's doing this week, he's always going somewhere with it, and 9 times out of 10 it works. And there's a great couple of plot threads as well of cases that he wasn't able to solve, and they're still out there, and they dot and weave in and out of the plot as it goes. So it's that Sherlock and Moriarty kind of thing.
Yeah.
So again, it's all stuff you've seen before, but you've never quite seen it done like this. And it's all down to one actor's performance. It's all down to the way he's taken that role upon him like an old suit. He just fits it perfectly. And even when he's in the background of a shot, you watch him. You watch his little mannerisms and his little ticks and his little... If you love that kind of... I kind of want to say like Benoit Blanc in Knives Out did kind of it's almost a comedy version of that. It's almost funny the way he notices little things. This is it, but done. There's definitely humor in there. There's definitely a lot of funny moments in it. But this is that concept taken on a serious level and done with real pathos and intelligence detective shows, Nordic noir shows. There are a million of them. I've recommended loads of them. Even if you're not into them and you just want to see an actor at the absolute blistering top of his game, you need to watch Bordertown. It is that good.
Holy shit, man. Yeah, I mean, well, that does sound singular from the rest for that, even if for that reason alone.
Yeah, I mean,
sounds reason enough to check it out.
As I said, in a lot of ways, it's actually very conventional. But I don't mind that necessarily, as long as it's good. I think conventional in the Nordic noir detective kind of stuff is not a thinly veiled insult, because there are so many good ones. Being conventional actually means it's up with the pack, and thereby it's very good. But I just couldn't take my eyes off this guy, man. I want to see him in everything. He just inhabits the character in a way that you very, very rarely see. And it's fascinating to watch him work. Really, really is.
Now you've made me curious.
Yeah, if he ever I'm going to watch out for him now. I really hope he crops up in other stuff, because I'm there. Day one, bucket of popcorn. I'm watching you, Ville.
It's another thing to add to my backlog of shit that I've said I was going to check out from you and still haven't done yet.
Oh, haven't we all? Yeah, I've got plenty you've recommended to me where I'm like, yeah, that sounds really good, man. Okay, then. Well, let's get on to some trivia to finish out the show. Oh, I thought we'd do some trivia about Finland.
Yeah, why not?
It's an interesting country. I always like it when we do trivia on Nordic countries in particular because they're fascinating in their efficiency, I often find.
Yeah, absolutely.
I find that bit of the world just kind of really compelling because they just sort of sit there doing their thing, doing very well for themselves, keeping quiet, and everything seems to be kind of good. And in the mad, crazy, fucked up world we live in, it's kind of...
Well, I think they've always scored quite highly on sort of global surveys of happiness and contentment.
Yeah,
like for a while, Denmark was like, they were considered to be like the most content people in the world. And I mean, it sounds a little bit extreme when you think about the data and the meta-analysis for that, but
well, you've unintentionally, Liam, because you never know what my trivia is going to be each week. You've led me perfectly into my first piece of trivia.
Oh, sweet!
Which is that Finland is the world's happiest country.
Oh, wow!
The Nordic countries consistently rank at the top of the UN's annual World Happiness Report. But in 2020, of all years, Finland had leapfrogged the rest to finish top of the pile. The rankings take into account many factors: life expectancy, freedom to make life choices, economic strength, generosity, social support from friends, perceived corruption, and views of the survey respondents.
Cool.
Apparently Finland really is that good.
Excellent.
The wife-carrying race originated in Finland. Wife-carrying, also known in Finland as, Yukonkato, is a competition in which men have to carry their female teammate, traditionally their wives, and race against other competitors through a special obstacle track. And the one who finishes first is declared the winner. The sport was first introduced in Skonviak. That's totally wrong, I'm sorry. Finland. Today's Skonviak, I'm sticking with it, serves as the venue for the wife-carrying world championships. The winner receives a prize of beer worth the weight of their wife.
So what are we talking about? What are we talking about? Piggyback, fireman's carry?
I looked this up earlier. There does seem to be the fireman's carry.
The fireman's carry.
And it's a really hardcore obstacle course as well. It's like, rope ladders and water sections and, like freezing lakes. It's kind of like a triathlon, except you're carrying your wife.
Wow.
So I guess the way to cheat that is to marry a very, very small woman, but then you don't get much beer. So there you go.
I just better hope that you're a teetotaler, don't you?
Yeah, friendly misogyny. I mean, you got to kind of love it, haven't you? Yeah. Finland celebrates a day for failure. Finland celebrates failure on the 13th of October each year. The first such day was held in 2010 by Finnish university students. It soon became very popular and attracted big names in Finnish society. Today, many famous politicians, artists, media personalities, and others support the day for failure and share their own stories of failure and how they overcame their problems. The day is celebrated to allow people to open up about their problems in life and gather encouragement from society and others who have suffered similar fates but still managed to persevere.
So, that sounds like a nice sort of healthy approach.
It does,
because in the, and no offense intended, because I do love the US of A, and, there are things that make me glad I'm from the UK. In both of those countries, especially, there is this, I think there really is this kind of attitude of like, just like, you're on your own, like get on with it. It's like, don't moan about anything that's happened. Just like get on. We don't want to hear about your failures. We want to hear about the times you made it, etc. This really like kind of harsh, like I'm all right, Jack. So that sounds like a more sort of open, humanistic approach.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where you think that's a really good idea. Why doesn't everybody do that?
Yeah.
Because we're so, you always want to hide your failures in just about every society I've been involved in. Everyone's very reluctant to
I think
talk about
we do come from a society. I'm not saying that we're the most egregious culprit. We do come from a society where I think it's becoming even more popular. People to go like, oh, you didn't do that. That didn't work out for you, did it? You fucking loser.
Yeah.
Often without provocation. And you think like, what the fuck is wrong with you? People do mess up when they attempt things. So yeah.
It's the only way you learn.
Yeah. Success is a part of failure. It's not the diametric opposite of it.
Yeah, every single successful person I've ever met has had a million failures behind them. But people only really remember the success.
All right, sorry, I misspoke there. Failure is a part of success, but it's
Sure.
very much part of the process. It's not. People seem to see them as opposites, and that's not a good way to look at it. It's an unhealthy way to look at it. So yeah, I'm glad to hear they do that. That's good.
During the Russo-Japanese War, 1904 to 1905, I didn't know about the Russo-Japanese War, by the way.
Neither did I.
I love this bit of trivia, though. Motojiro Akashi, the Japanese military attaché in Stockholm, was ordered by his government to distract the Tsar with a Finnish revolution. Consequently, Akashi acquired the John Grafton, an aging steamship, in the name of a British wine merchant. He stocked the boat with 15,000 rifles, 2.5 million bullets, some 2,500 revolvers, and 3 tons of explosives. Owing to a misunderstanding, the boat also came with hundreds of gallons of wine. The mission was a catastrophic failure, mainly because the crew got drunk, and the lead rebel, Connie Zilikas, unwisely tried to quit smoking during the voyage. He was nearly caught trying to break into a cigarette shop in Copenhagen. They made it to the coast of Finland, but had to blow the ship up when the Russian Navy arrived.
Has there been a film of this? There needs to be a film.
I was just about to say, that is ripe. Surely some great farce can be made out of that story.
There needs to be either a film centered around that or some sort of television series where that factors into an episode or two.
Yeah.
That would be perfect.
I found a website earlier when I was doing my research on this called herfinland.com, which is run by a very nice Finnish lady. And she writes blog posts about how Finnish culture is a bit different and what to do if you're visiting Finland and sort of the quirks of Finnish culture. I thought we'd finish off with a few of these because they're both informative and some of them are quite funny.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So she's done a numbered list of facts about Finland, and I've just cherry-picked a few here. Second on the list is the use of "how are you" in Finland. The quickly said sentence, "Hey, how are you?" is a typical opening phrase in many parts of the world, for example, in the US. Say the phrase in Finland, and most Finns will be confused. Most likely, you'll hear the crickets inside our heads. That's because in Finland, "how are you" is a proper question demanding an honest answer. Thus, we are thinking about our well-being and what we should answer. Only the most internationally savvy Finns will have the prompt answer, "Great, how are you?" I love that. How are you? Oh, God, I don't know. Yeah. It's one of those bullshit things he says. "How's it going, man?" "Oh, yeah, great. How are you?" "Yeah, I'm awesome."
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, at work over the years, there's been a couple of employees, colleagues of mine, who have been from overseas. And when I've asked how I have been met with the "oh, not too good actually." And it's just, I'm not trying to say well, no, you should do this, but it's just, I think you do become accustomed in this country to that very thing. It's like when somebody says "how are you," you just go, "Yeah, fine." You don't actually come out with a true and honest answer.
The most you'll ever get out of a Brit on that one in terms of an honest answer is, "Oh, it's not me, mate, it's the others."
Yeah, or
something like that.
Up and down like a horse draws. Or,
something deflecting.
Fair to middling.
Yeah.
Just something very quick and terse.
When someone says "hanging on in there," that means I am very, very close to doing something terrible. Leave me alone.
Yeah. Essentially.
Number 19 on the list, dishwashing differences. Finns don't have a dishwashing sponge. We have a dishwashing brush. Okay, then. I love that made number 19 on the list.
But I mean,
is that all Finns? Speaking of all Finns.
But I have dishwashing brushes at home.
We have both. I do more often use the sponge, but we have both. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realise that was a wacky thing. But
apparently, I wonder if you're Finnish and you're listening, please do write in. Is that a thing where you actually, is that like an active thing? Like we never use a sponge. That's, I presume, for hygiene because sponges hold on to bacteria and things and the brush is cleaner. But I'd love to know if that's like a countrywide thing. But it made it to number 19 on our list.
Please do tell us.
Number 22, the weird small shower head. In the toilet, there's often a tiny shower head by the sink. That's for the intimate wash.
The intimate wash.
The intimate wash. We do not speak of the intimate wash. And so essentially, it's a bidet.
Oh, okay.
I think. But like a bidet, a small shower head version of a bidet. You ever used a bidet? I'm getting very personal here.
No.
I've been in hotels where a bidet is a thing, and I've tried them out just to see if it's any good. I think they're worse.
I've never used one. I've seen several of them. They are their specific utility is washing your shitty arsehole.
Yes, I
Okay.
believe so. Anyway, I mean,
Well-
that's what I try to use mine for.
I just think that why don't you just wipe properly?
Yeah, it's kind of. I'm not sure having a jet of water go up my ass, and then but at that point as well, I was like, so what happens now? Am I supposed to still use toilet paper? But then you can't because that all gets soggy. So what am I supposed to use my fucking hand? How is it better to clean my own ass with my bare hand? People go, oh well, you should wash your hands. I do wash my hands, but I think it's better to wash your hands after using toilet paper
Yeah.
than washing your hands because you've literally just rubbed your own poo.
Wipe your eye. Yeah, and sorry, I know that this is not very pleasant, but wipe your ass and look at the paper you're wiping your ass with. If there's still shit on it, you haven't done it properly.
Although I have to say, and I know we're getting very
thoroughly wash your hands.
I know we're getting very, very personal here, but I have to say, very recently, I've switched over to the toilet paper and then finish off with a baby wipe trick. And I have to say, Liam, it's a revelation.
It's a revelation.
It's a revelation. You feel so much cleaner afterwards.
You enjoy a load of freezing cold, sterilizing agents all over your rectum.
Just a single baby wipe, just to finish off, just to make sure that you've got everything. And then you feel so much more. Yeah, I know it's a really, really, what's happened to my life, man. I used to be rock and roll.
I knew there was a reason I always felt funny about you.
Yeah, well, the only problem
God's sake.
The only problem, of course, is that you can't flush the baby wipe because it clogs up the pipes and everything. So then you have to do the walk of shame to the bin.
Good Lord, are you serious?
Yeah, so I only really do it when everyone else is out because no one wants to see me walking through. Yeah, well, I think we'll leave that. You know what I mean.
And how many people know now?
Yes. I'm not sure my girlfriend does, actually. Everyone who listens to the podcast
find out.
Does. My last fact here, this is number 50 on her list. This is the concept of sisu. In Finland, there's one overarching concept that I would say all Finns agree and are proud of. It's called sisu. Sisu means courage, grit, determination, and bravery in the face of obstacles and challenges. It's sometimes translated into Finnish spirit. Having sisu allows a person to keep going when others would consider a task impossible or give up.
Oh, cool. So
Yeah.
the specific word for determination.
Yeah, they have it as like a national characteristic kind of thing.
That's very cool. Is it like, 'cause I think you have sort of certain counterparts for other, I think, mentalities or states of mind. I think what is it? Is it the Danes who have, is it hygge or hygge? It's a specific word. It usually gets translated as happiness, but it sort of means cozy contentment.
Oh, yes, I have heard of
When you
this,
have
yeah.
sort of uniform peace of mind and you're usually doing something like, curled up in front of a fireplace with a nice book and a glass of like wine, or you're just having a lovely bubble bath. It's that nice toasty contentment. I think it's quite common in a lot of Scandinavia and other European countries. They have those sort of essentially untranslatable words for very specific states of mind, and I love that sort of
I
thing.
think the British equivalent would be the stiff upper lip or whatever. It's that national characteristic of not giving in even when everything's
Or
against
the
you.
the Dunkirk spirit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But yes, it just makes me want to visit Finland, really. I've never done any of the Nordic countries and I'm desperate to because I find them absolutely fascinating.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, then that brings us to the end of our free podcast this week. Thank you so much for listening. We're going to go and record the premium now. And this week, Liam's got a couple of extra takes to start. What are your extra takes this week?
Well, I'm going to be looking at the 2006 director's cut of Payback from 1999, the Mel Gibson film directed by Brian Helgeland. Him and Helgeland brought out a director's cut of that movie in 2006, which I think is vastly superior to the theatrical cut. So I'm going to be talking about that. And I'm also going to be talking about Who Will Stop the Rain, which is a very underrated 1978 flick starring Nick Nolte and Tuesday World. It doesn't get the love it deserves, and I wish it would.
Cool stuff. And I'm going to be doing a piece about The Expanse, actually, which is a show that I reviewed way back at the start of our run, actually, when season 5 came out. And I've rewatched the whole thing recently, including the final last season. And we're going to then sort of use that as a jumping point to go into TV shows that have, to our minds at least, the best endings. Everyone talks about the disappointing endings, like, oh, the ending to Game of Thrones was crap or whatever. We've put together a list, essentially, of TV shows that we thought ended correctly. And,
Yeah.
people always talk about, like, oh, it's impossible to please everybody. You were never going to be able to, there are plenty of shows that have done really, really great.
Well,
endings.
my own picks, which obviously we'll get into, they are sort of the biggest ones, if you like. They're shows that everybody knows. But I think, one of the reasons that they're considered subjectively by probably millions of people to be among the best is because they have that good end note. And I think to discuss why it does work is nice.
Yes, nice stuff. So if you like any of that nice stuff, then please do check out cinementalist.com for a link to our Patreon page. You can follow us on Twitter at Cinementalcast, and you can follow Liam at
the movies at Wacko Jacko's Flicks.
And that roundabout wraps it up for this week, mate. I hope to see you guys on the premium podcast. If not, free one next week.
Thank you, everyone.